Prize winner, and he has now put out a statement. He only is expected to live for a few weeks, and he put out a beautiful statement at the end of last week. He concludes his statement this way. He says, "I thank my colleagues, my readers, and my viewers who have made my career possible and given consequence to my life's work. I believe that the pursuit of truth and right ideas through honest debate and rigorous argument is a noble undertaking. I am grateful to have played a small role in the conversations that have helped guide this extraordinary nation's destiny. I leave this life with no regrets. It was a wonderful life, full and complete with the great loves and great endeavors that make it worth living. I am sad to leave, but I leave with the knowledge that I lived the life that I intended." Now, would that everybody not only has this grace, but lives the life that they intended. Would that everybody dies with that sort of feeling of accomplishment, as Charles Krauthammer, as well he should. I mean, Charles Krauthammer is an amazing guy. So Charles Krauthammer, when he was in Harvard Medical School, he was in a diving accident, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. And he went on to get his psychiatric degree from Harvard Medical School. He worked on the DSM-2, and then he became a columnist on politics and culture and won the Pulitzer Prize. And, of course, you saw him every night on Fox News. So he will be passing away in the next few weeks, according to his doctors, a tremendous loss for not only the conservative movement, but for the cause of gentility and decency. A really decent human being. I met Charles Krauthammer twice. Once was in his office where he asked probing questions between talk about baseball, and once was actually over at the PragerU offices where he was cutting a video for them. And I was over in the offices at the time. We had a little bit of time to chat. Just an amazing person, depth of mind, depth of curiosity, and a truly profound soul. So the world will be lesser for his loss. Thank God for that we all had the experience of getting to watch Charles Krauthammer at work, a wordsmith and a deep thinker at the same time, which is an amazing thing. Okay, time for people who are not wordsmiths or deep thinkers. Let's talk about the Tony Awards last night. So the Tony Awards happened last night, and apparently the deep thinkers at the Tony Awards felt the necessity to virtue signal to all of their friends in the theater industry. This began with Robert De Niro. So Robert De Niro gets up and he gives a very eloquent statement of why he opposes President Trump, like a very eloquent, deep statement of why President Trump ought to be ousted and is a grave threat to the system of American democracy.
I'm going to say one thing. Trump.
Okay, we bleeped it out. He says F Trump right there. Standing ovation. Standing ovation. I'm just going to say one thing. F Trump. Such bravery. Stunning bravery.
Down with Trump. It's Trump.
No longer down with Trump. It's F Trump. Oh, bravery. Bravery beyond all measure. Bravery beyond all capacity. I'm sure that everyone in that audience hated Trump until that moment. And then Robert De Niro spoke truth to power. And suddenly all of the love that they had for Trump up till then turned to hate. Wow, what unbelievable, just speaking truth. And the explanation, I mean, the real fulsome explanation of why he opposes President Trump there really is quite meaningful. I will say, like, I thought it was a convincing case, a beautifully convincing case by Robert De Niro for why you shouldn't support President Trump. And what an amazing dude Robert De Niro is. And then Andrew Garfield gets up. So Andrew Garfield, who you recall from such great movies as Spider-Man, the reboot that was then rebooted, Andrew Garfield is in Angels in America. So Angels in America, you'll remember as a tendentious, overlong, ridiculous, crappy TV series from HBO, starring half of Hollywood. It's like a 9-hour meditation on homosexuality in America from like 1960s on. And they made a 7-hour Wagnerian production of it for Broadway, in which Andrew Garfield plays a young gay man suffering from AIDS. And Andrew Garfield gets up at the Tony Awards, where a quarter of the audience probably is gay, and he starts lecturing Americans in front of the cameras about the Masterpiece Cake Shop case because he doesn't know anything about law or about, apparently, decency. So he gets up, and then he starts talking about, let's down with the Supreme Court. So we had Robert De Niro, F Trump, and now we have Andrew Garfield speaking from the heart about why Christians should be forced to violate their own religious precepts.
We are all sacred and we all belong. So let's just bake a cake for everyone who wants a cake to be baked.
So let's just bake a cake. Fine. I ask you, Andrew Garfield, I'm going to write a play about Masterpiece Cake Shop. It's about how the Christian family in that case was victimized by vindictive LGBT activists and who almost ruined their business and destroyed their lives. I would like you to play the lead. I would like Andrew Garfield to play the lead as the Christian man who refused service to the same-sex wedding out of religious conviction and then almost had his life destroyed by a bunch of vindictive bureaucrats. And you should play that lead. Act the part. You know, if everybody, why can't we all just act the parts that we're asked to act? I'm happy to pay you your salary. I'll raise the money to do it. And you can star in it, Andrew Garfield. I mean, I'm serious about this. I will go raise the money right now. If he pledges to act in this play, I will write it, and then we'll go get the money, and Andrew Garfield can act. It'll be great. because he shouldn't have any say as to what sort of parts he acts. He should just act whatever part comes in front of him. And if he has moral scruples about that part, well, why can't he be tolerant? Why can't he be a more tolerant person? Why can't he just act the part that people want him to act and are willing to pay him to act? I'm willing to even pay him his money. I'm not saying do it for free. Okay, this is the stupidity of this position. Okay, this idea, just bake the cake, just bake the cake. What if I don't want to bake the cake? It's a free damn country. I get to not bake the cake if I don't want to bake the cake. And the fact that Andrew Garfield stands up there and is lecturing everybody about what cake to bake, he's an artist too. He should know. He should know when it is appropriate and when it is not to force people to do things. As an artist, I do not get to force my perception of what Andrew Garfield should act upon Andrew Garfield. That's not the way this works. Even though he's in the public square, even though he's operating in the area of commerce, I don't get to do that. But according to Andrew Garfield, everybody else should have to do that because he is upset that gay weddings aren't going to get the cake from the Christian shop as opposed to the cake from every other bake shop in America owned by a gay person. Like, it's ridiculous and it's over the top. And again, it's virtue signaling in front of a bunch of people who agree with him. And so he gets big cheers for that. If you wanted to actually be brave, you should have gone out there and said, we all need to tolerate one another. And that means that I'm willing to tolerate the Christian baker who doesn't want to cater my same-sex wedding. And the Christian baker should tolerate me when I come in and ask for a cake. Right? He doesn't want to do that. Right? Instead, he wants to engage in a bit of, let me tell you what to do, which is what the entire left apparently wants to do now. So that's just wonderful. Okay. Final thing that I hate. So Bill Maher, who is good on some issues and bad on some issues. I will give him credit for honesty here. Bill Maher is not a fan of President Trump's. That's his prerogative. But then he just drops it that he would like to see an economic downturn to oust Trump. Okay, now, I'm old enough to remember when Rush Limbaugh said in 2009, right after Barack Obama's election, that he hoped Obama fails. And what he meant by that is he hopes that President Obama failed in his attempts to implement Obama-esque policy. Not that he wanted to see the economy downturn, not that he wanted to see the fiscal state of America collapse or America's power on the foreign stage collapse. He just didn't want to see Obama's policies promulgated. He wanted him to fail in pursuing his policies. Well, Bill Maher is a little more open than that. Bill Maher just says, I want the economy to fail. I want millions of people thrown out of work so Trump will be ousted.
I feel like the bottom has to fall out at some point. And by the way, I'm hoping for it because I think one way you get rid of Trump is a crashing economy. Yeah. So please bring on the recession. Yeah. Sorry if that hurts people, but it's either root for a recession or you lose your democracy.
Okay, so root for a recession or you lose your democracy, or maybe you just make the case against Trump in terms that are rational, and then we can all decide whether that's convincing or not. But you know, when you're now rooting for millions of people to be thrown out of work because you want to see it have a bad impact on the president of the United States, I would say that's probably not a good thing. Okay, we'll be back here tomorrow with all the latest. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is the Ben Shapiro Show. The Ben Shapiro Show is produced by Senya Villarreal, executive producer Jeremy Boring, senior producer Jonathan Hay. Our supervising producer is Mathis Glover, and our technical producer is Austin Stevens.
That emotions track progress towards goals. And I'm going to use that schema, even though it's not exactly right. So you say, well, motivation determines where you're going to aim. So if you're hungry, you're going to aim at something to eat. And then that will organize your perceptions so that you zero out everything that isn't relevant to that task, which is almost everything. You concentrate on those few things that are going to facilitate your movement forward. When you encounter those things, that produces positive emotion as you move through the world towards your goal, and you see that things are laying themselves out that facilitate your movement forward. Those things cause positive emotion. And if you encounter anything that gets in the way, then that produces negative emotion, and it can be like threat, because you're not supposed to encounter something that gets in the way. It can be anger, so that you move it away. It can be frustration, disappointment, grief. Those would, if you had a response that serious to an obstacle, it would probably punish the little motivated frame right out of existence. You know, so you walk downstairs and, I don't know, the contracting company has set a wrecking ball through your kitchen. It's like, that's going to be disappointing. You're not going to keep eating the peanut butter sandwich in the rubble. That little frame is going to get punished out of existence, and some new goal is going to pop up in its stead. And, you know, one of the things we're going to try to sort out is how do you decide when you've encountered an obstacle that's so big that you should just quit and go do something else, because that's not obvious, you know. And you can get into counterproductive persistence pretty easily. So we don't know how people solve that problem. It's a really complicated one. So anyways, we're going to work on that scenario. Your hypothalamus pops up micro goals that are directly relevant to biological survival. That produces a frame of reference. So it's not a goal, it's not a drive, and it's not a collection of behaviors. It's a little personality. And the personality has a viewpoint, it has thoughts that go along with it, it has perceptions, it has action tendencies, all of that. You can see this in addiction, most particularly. So one of the things that you find often with people who are alcoholic is they lie all the time. And that's because when they've built a little alcohol dependent personality inside of themselves, or a big one, maybe it's 90% of their personality, and one of the things that consists of is all the rationalizations that they've used over the years to justify their addiction to themselves and to other people. And so the addiction has a personality. You know, and so when the person is off, or maybe they're addicted to meth or something like that, where, you know, the addiction is more, it's more short-term powerful, than I would say, than an alcohol addiction. They'll say anything, and the words are just tools used to get towards the goal. And if they happen to be deceptive, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're just practical tools to get towards the goal. And then when you get towards the goal and you take a nice shot of meth or something like that, you reinforce all those rationales that you use to get the drug, and then the next time you're even a better deceiver and liar. So, okay, so we're going to say motivations, one way of thinking about it is they set goals, but it's not the right way of thinking about it. They produce a whole framework of interpretation. And so we're going to think about that framework of interpretation. And then emotions emerge inside of that. So that's it. So the world is framed, motivation set goals. You could say the world has to be framed. So motivation sets that frame. Goals, emotions, perceptions, and actions. And then actions track progress. So positive emotion says you're moving forward properly towards your goal. And if you encounter something you don't expect, you stop. That's anxiety. It's like, oh, we're not where we thought we were. And so we don't know what to do. So we should stop because we don't know where we are or what we're doing. Stop, frozen. And then the more powerful negative emotions like pain, they might make you get out of there. So emotions, forward, stop, reverse. That's your emotions within that motivated frame. So, and that's another example of how your mind is embedded in your body. Your emotions are like they're offshoots of action tendencies. That's the right way to think about it. Because action is everything, fundamentally. So what are some basic motivations? Most of these are regulated by the hypothalamus, by the way, and that tells you just how important a control system it is. The other thing that's useful to know about the hypothalamus is that it has projections going up from it that are like tree trunks, and inhibitory projections coming down that are like grapevines. So you can kind of control your hypothalamus as long as it's not on too much, but if it's on in any serious way, it's like it wins. So partly what you do to stop yourself from falling under the dominion of your hypothalamus is to never ever be anywhere where its action is necessary, right? You don't want to go into a biker bar